Good evening. It's Monday, the 13th of September, and what a week of action we've got to talk about this week. 43 goals, the most in each division of the EFL, and some the worldies in there amongst some shocks. It had everything this weekend. So I've put us all on the screen today because it's the first time this season we've had a guest on. So I'll start by introducing you first. John, welcome to the third tier.
Well, thank you for handing me my debut. I'm looking forward to this.
Yep, welcome on. And Matt, back on it.
As always.
Technically not missed the show, mate, so...
Ever present, aren't I?
Absolutely.
Not a reliable centre-half.
That you are. Talking of reliable centre-halves, how you doing, Graham?
Yeah, I'm all right. Not bad. I wouldn't call myself as reliable. I'm Tom Flanagan. I'm having a resurgence.
Maverick.
I wouldn't call you a centre half either. You don't class me as a centre half. It was a really poor link.
I'll take what you can get.
Ian, what time do you call this? Not sure. You need to pipe up this week, mate.
Yeah. He's already been moaning on Twitter.
Yeah. Let me just quickly close that. Sorry, gents. Right, we're going to get straight into it this week, guys. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot of goals and a lot to dissect. So we shall start with my game choice of the weekend, and that was Cambridge versus Lincoln. Mad game for me. It was a very difficult game for Lincoln before the match. They've had a torrid time at the moment, not picking up any more than the one victory. They've got, I think, 3 defeats as well. But they started off fantastically well within 20 or so seconds, getting on the score sheet. But there's one sort of performance that stood out for me, and it's why it's my game of the weekend was Mr. Scully's performance. I don't know if you gents have seen the highlights, but 3 assists and 2 goals involved in every single piece of the action. And not only that, his 2 goals are absolutely superb and really set sort of his expectations probably moving forward to this season. Puts him second in the goals and top for assists as well, which we'll come on to talk about. Matt, your thoughts on the match? For me, it was one of those games which I thought would be a very difficult game, maybe very close, but it wasn't the case this time.
No, and I did some notes for every game. I did notes more for the 2 games that I'm featuring. I just wrote 2 words for this game: Anthony Scully. Just absolutely phenomenal performance. I don't care who it's against, what the comparative form is, at what level. To have 90 minutes where you set up 3 goals and you score 2 absolute belters, they're not tap-ins. I know you could say that Cambridge should probably learn and not let him to dart in onto his right foot for the second one, but they're equally good finishes. The first one I preferred just a little bit. But yeah, it's just one of them days where everything he touched turned to gold, and he probably won't have another afternoon like that all season. But Imps fans won't care one jot, were they? Because like you said, at kickoff, it looked like a tricky one. I think Cambridge had barely conceded a goal this season. And that's even more impressive considering a lot of people had them down to probably struggle a little bit stepping up from League Two, but they got absolutely dismantled, and probably they're welcome to League One, that if you do come up against a good side and they're on it, you can get torn to pieces at this level.
I think we're missing the main point is that I've been saying for a long while that Lincoln are going to win the league. I'm sticking by that. And then I was laughed at. I was shot at. I was told I was wrong 6 games into the season. And I tell everyone it was because Chris Maguire was injured. And look who returned to the substitutes bench this week. So we'll talk about Anthony Scully, but I think really the winner is Chris Maguire.
It's that drop of inspiration when his name's on the team sheet, isn't it? But
just his face. I feel the same. If his face was on my team sheet, apart from the past 3 seasons, I'd feel like we're going to get promoted and beat teams like Cambridge 5-1. It's a handsome chap.
Unless you're in the playoffs,
Yeah.
Just a point though. Bonner said after the game, it's one of these games which we'll learn from. I wouldn't say that they absolutely did dismantle them, but the stats wise, they still were in the game in some respects. Cambridge, 49% possession. I think they had to about 10 shots. It's just one of those afternoons where Lincoln were on song, and we saw it many times last season. They dismantled a few teams, and when they're on song and they're playing good football, Scully in that form. Ironically, I prefer the second goal. Matt, I think he's got less time to think about what he wants to do, and he gets some incredible power behind it to send the away fans into raptures, and hopefully that can kickstart their season because they deserve to have another go after last season, in my opinion. But that's my game choice. Just before we move on to the next one, good evening, Andy. Hope you're all well. Good to see you back on the pod. Moving on to the next one, John, as our guest, you get the second pick after the host, and that is the game that you attended, I believe. That was MK Dons versus Pompey.
Yeah, I went to the game thinking it's going to be a really tight game. Actually got off to a really good start. Gavin Bazumu in goal for Portsmouth was just on another level. Save from Parrott, save point blank from Harry Darling, and then tipped an absolute worldie from Twine that I thought was destined for the top bins round the post. Danny Cowley made a substitution just after half time, taking Hackett Fairchild off, and he brought Ronan Curtis on about 5 minutes later. And then they started to assert themselves on the game, took control. Curtis had a brilliant chance one-on-one that Fisher saved. And then we brought Josh McEachran on, and then we hit them with a fantastic counter-attack from their own corner, where Troy Parrott basically got himself into space, pinged an absolute worldie of a ball to Scott Twine. And then for a minute, I thought Usain Bolt was coming down the middle of the stadium, but then no, it was good old Ethan Robson, who's a lot of fans are now starting to appreciate how good a player he is. I know some Sunderland fans say he wasn't as good, and some Blackpool fans actually rate him. So I was a bit split when he signed, but he's turning into one of these unsung heroes that breaks up the play, starts the moves, gives O'Reilly and Twine the room to manoeuvre. And we just saw the game out after that. Portsmouth had no answer really, and it was quite a comfortable 1-0 towards the end. But it's one of those results, I think, that make people stand up and think that we could have a good push this season.
Yeah, just on that, Matt, I'll come to you first. That just before the season starts, Russell Martin leaves, and we're all talking on the third tier. We're talking amongst our group chat that they're in a bit of trouble, MK Dons, just because of what he was building. And as John's alluded to, the signings they've made this season, for me, are if not the best in terms of the group of players they have, but certainly up there along with Ipswich and a few others. Manning's come in and, they say, with purpose, played some good football, but they look like they're not missing in one bit, and actually they're taking this league very comfortably, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And I think we had this chat, didn't we, on the 1 to 24 show, and I think myself and Graham were sort of the similar opinion that losing Russell Martin perhaps wasn't such a big deal as maybe the MK Dons fans were making it. And that's understandable because they're in and amongst it, and is that red wine you're drinking?
Yes, sorry.
Oh my word!
I should have taken me off camera when I sit back.
We've gone very middle class tonight. Anyway,
I'm
back to the game.
I'm celebrating after the Fulham win, mate. What can I say?
Yeah, but I had them challenging the top. When they made the signings, I had them anywhere from sort of second to sixth, and I then toyed with the idea of dropping them out of the playoffs after Martin left. But I was brave and stuck them fifth, and I think they're reaping the rewards of that. And Russell Martin, dare I say, it's not started great at Swansea, albeit with a team that's probably been ripped up after Steve Cooper left and they had a few people leave in the summer. But Manning's come in, and I think the biggest compliment you can pay him at the moment is he's not, well, certainly from my point of view, and Jonathan would probably be able to shed more light on it, it doesn't look like he's ripped anything up and gone, right, we're doing it my way now, completely different. He's realised that Martin was doing a decent job, and I'm certainly not saying that Russell Martin wasn't doing a decent job. I just think people were sort of overcooking how good he was doing in terms of what he'd actually achieved with MK Dons. But Manning's been really clever. He's tweaked a couple of things, but he knows that he's got a good side and he's got good players. And them tweaks at the moment are certainly reaping dividends, because I think, have you lost under him yet? Did you lose the first game under Manning, Jonathan? I know you're 5 or 6 unbeaten now.
Well, we lost the first game technically under him to Sunderland, but he did say post-match that Dean Lewington basically picked that squad, and he was there just as see what it was like, even though he was on the bench. So we've actually gone, I think, 6 unbeaten since then in all competitions. So as you say, he's not really changed much. He's just he seems to get us a bit more organised defensively as well, which was one of our weaknesses last season. We haven't. I think the earliest we've conceded is the 20th minute so far, and I think everyone that saw us last season saw that we always conceded pretty early in games.
Yeah,
It's a fair assumption. I think they're doing really well, and I think they'll be a threat. It's not like they've struggled or taken a while to get going under Manning. It seems to have been pretty seamless, and I don't think Russell Martin's being missed at all.
I think he's too linked in for my liking. Russell Martin was far too linked in, like this new guy more. I think they may be not really missing Will Grigg. Surprise.
Who?
Mate.
Yeah, he's done all right though there, didn't he? He scored. He scored half a dozen goals, didn't he? And set up a few as well.
Lovely.
You'll get used to Graham. He hates any striker that's played for Sunderland and no longer plays for Sunderland, apart from maybe Jermaine Defoe.
Oh, godly.
There we go.
Just to wrap this game up, then, two things you say, John. He may set up with like a 3-4-2-1, doesn't he? And that 4 in midfield, defend as well as a back sort of 5, as well as on the counter attack, as we saw Robson pushing up. And as you say, I didn't know he had that pace in him either. And it was a tidy finish in the end, and one that Benzema couldn't do anything about after his worldy 2 weeks, saving a penalty from Cristiano Ronaldo and making some very crucial saves for Portsmouth throughout the game. But Graham, I'll finish on a negative note for Pompey. What is it, 4 games now without a goal, and after their smart start or their tidy start, that they seem to be sort of suffering like they did towards the end of last season.
I think they just love League One, Pompey. I think they're just big fans of the league because they kind of get out of it, but they're never going to get relegated from it. But I've never been that enamoured by the Cowleys. And I don't know if that makes me non-hipster, but like I felt like a lot of people really liked the Cowleys and thought like they were going to go into Portsmouth and that was just going to work. But there's nothing about Pompey that makes me go, they're going to be up and around there or be more fearsome of teams like MK Dons and probably Accrington after seeing them at the weekend, which I'm sure we'll get on to. But I'm sure Pompey will be there or thereabouts because I think they'll get enough points at home to be like around the playoff places. But I don't think the manager that brought in a couple of years ago was seen as like the hottest property, and he hasn't really, in my opinion, and I don't watch Portsmouth every week, so Portsmouth fans, feel free to shoot me with poo-poo if you want. You know your team better than I do, but I don't think he's got them playing that much better than what they were playing under Kenny Jackett.
It's a difficult one. They still set up, I think, with a 4-2-3-1, but the quality they've got in their squad, mate, you think they could create chances to score goals. You got the likes of Harness, Tunnicliffe, Marquis, Morel, even Williams sitting in the central midfield. It just, something's not clicking there, and their first 11 isn't that bad. So what do you think it is in terms of them not scoring goals?
That's a difficult question, isn't it? Because I suppose if I knew the answer to that, maybe I'd have a job at Portsmouth. But I think Portsmouth probably have a mindset element as well, and very much the way that my club does and haven't done, thankfully, so far this season, where sometimes things just feel like they're going to go wrong. Pompey, very much as we seemingly dislike each other, have been in a very similar boat to Sunderland, and I think you mentioned a lot of players there that are good players, but I think for me, Portsmouth have been the same sort of level of strength since 4 years ago. And I think the more you sort of stand still at this level or don't improve, other teams such as MK Dons, Accrington I mentioned before, are going to catch up, that are going to get better. We've felt that ourselves. And I don't think their recruitment, there are some better players in the division, but any of those players that are going to necessarily grow into the Championship, I don't know. People love Ronan Curtis. I think he's in League One for a reason. Harness, I think, is a really good player. Don't like coming up against him, but there's a lot of teams in this division that have started well, where I'm looking at their teams and I'm saying you could probably take those players into the Championship with you if you get promoted and make a fist of it, if you add a bit of quality here and there. Pompey would probably need a bit of an overhaul, and it's felt like that with a few clubs. But I wouldn't say I'm worried for Portsmouth, but like they're not. I don't even know if they're the same side they were 4 years ago, if I'm honest.
No, you're spot on. I think the pivotal phrase there you said is if you don't move on and adapt and you stand still, you're going to be stagnant and stay mid-table. And I think you're spot on. And they're getting an even overhaul in January, which isn't going to work either because they'll be too far away as well. So we'll keep an eye on Portsmouth and how they get on. But Matt, over to you. An incredible match at Ipswich, and we're not expecting anything less. As just before we go to you, James has said, evening guys, wanted to jump on live for a while. Love the pod, not loving Ipswich's performances though. And this was another afternoon to forget for the Tractor Boys.
It was, wasn't it? We can't keep saying it's early in the season. We can't keep saying these players need time to gel. We can't keep saying Paul Cook needs time. This is Paul Cook's squad now. This is Paul Cook's 11. This is Paul Cook's 18. They're all his players. He's had a whole summer. And my prediction for them to win the league looks incredibly poor at the moment. Can you stop drinking wine when I'm talking, please? It's putting me right off. But you've got to give credit to Bolton. And we spoke about Bolton early on in the season. And we said they're a lovely team to watch. They look great going forward. They're probably going to hand out a hiding to someone. But they look shaky defensively. But they look watertight compared to Ipswich Town at the moment, who just look like a bunch of players chucked together. There doesn't seem to be any cohesion. There doesn't seem to be any game plan. I watch the highlights of their games every week, and I come on here and I talk to you lot, and the two pluses always seem to be Wes Burns and Macaulay Bonne. And again, they combine for the first goal, and you think, here we go. I had it down as 3-2 Ipswich in the predictions this week. I thought Ipswich would get their first win purely because Bolton will give you chances, and Ipswich have got players to hurt you going forwards.
Yeah.
We keep forgetting to factor in that Ipswich are absolutely shocking defensively at the moment, and they're giving away more chances. I think there's not many teams, if any, have conceded more in the league than Ipswich at the moment, which, considering you've bought in a £1 million centre-half, you've bought in the best talent available generally to this league in terms of it being League One, and we know that League One is of the highest standard it's probably ever been this season. But there's something really, really wrong with Ipswich at the moment for me. I looked at the stats. They switch off all the time for the goals. There's a daft challenge for a penalty, which is a stonewaller, which is just brain dead defending again.
Yeah, awful.
They then get back into it through the own goal, which is made by Wes Burns again. And in second half, they concede two more. You can say they're chasing the game, which understandably happens, that you leave more gaps if you're 3-2 down. But these goals are coming just after half time. They're not 3-2 down with 5 minutes to play and they get caught on the break late on. These are happening. They're 5-2 down inside an hour. So they conceded a goal every 12 minutes for the first 60 minutes of that game, which is staggering considering all the players they brought in. They just look like an accident waiting to happen defensively at the moment. Bolton thoroughly deserved it. They had more shots. They had double. It was 14-7. They had over double shots on target, 7-3. They had 6 corners to 1. Biggest concern for me for Ipswich is 14 Bolton shots, 12 were inside the box, which means defensively, Ipswich are too easy to play against. If you're getting off 12 shots inside someone else's 18-yard box in a 90-minute period, you're not doing your job defensively, and that's at any level. And that's a big concern for me if I was a Tractor Boys fan. I know we've got James Johnson on here as well, who's just commented, I think. And obviously we'll have a quick read of that one. He's put, I agree, gel and time is out the window. If things don't change soon, there will be a change incoming. Credit to Bolton, just a shame about our fan giving racial. Yeah, and that's, I mean, we don't want to talk about that, and we don't want to give the arsehole, scum, whatever you want to call them, any sort of airtime, because it just beggars belief in the 21st century that this is a thing again, unfortunately, isn't it? But it's because people can hide behind social media profiles, but doing it at ground is just the lowest of the low, isn't it? Just because your team's lost, people just need to grow up and look in the mirror. But I think Paul Cook's got a lot of sort of soul searching to do at the moment, because there becomes a point where it's on his head. It's on his head anyway. Like I said, it's his squad, but we say you have to give it 10, 12 games to look at the table, and that's where you're going to finish. Well, we're halfway through that period of 10, 12 games now, and Ipswich are in the bottom 4. So I can't see the new owners waiting too much longer with a squad that's been assembled for a decent amount of money as well. This isn't just all free transfers, and the wages are probably fairly substantial as well. I can't see them waiting around too much longer if this continues, this run of poor form. And that's what it is. It's a run of poor form now. Soon it becomes a crisis, I imagine.
I don't think there's much more we can add to that before we move on. But if you look at Ipswich's their 52 signings which they've signed. But in all seriousness, the team that they've assembled, and as you say, it's Paul Cook. The board have invested in Paul Cook. They've invested in his ability to sign players, and the owners, of course, have had some influence in that. But you almost don't know what to do. It's almost like an embarrassment of riches, and you kind of look at the players you've signed and gone, actually, who do I start now? And they initially signed Fraser. I got really excited for them because he's a League One experienced player, as John would know.
Yeah.
And their strikers are brilliant. Macaulay Bonne has done himself super proud anyway. But they just seem to put, like you say, pieces of a puzzle, chucked it in the air and walked away. And then hopefully they do something because they're all quality players. And I'd much rather have a team like Accrington or with all, speaking from personal sort of experience like Blackpool had last season, where we signed some decent players and we just had that cohesion and that spirit and that, the belief. Even like Gills, with all due respect, nowhere near on paper, as Matt would agree, their squad isn't good, but you just know they're going to go out there and do something and defend and have the odd attack and be effective. Ipswich at the moment just haven't got a clue, and I think you're right, Matt. I think it will be. I think the cruncher on Talking Town said maybe he's got 4 more games and that's it for him. I wouldn't even give him 4 more games. If he doesn't pick up a win in his next couple, you can't imagine he's going to be in the job too much longer.
Wild prediction for Ipswich. They will never win a game ever again.
To be fair, John, you must have heard the 1 to 24s when I think Graham had them 6th, maybe 7th, and me and Matt genuinely just laughed and was in shock. And
you all laughed at me.
I did. Well, Lincoln top. I think it's just more of a guess, to be fair.
Maguire's back. It's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. But over to you now. We'll come over to Paul Cook and some other managers at the end if we have time. But Graham, were you at the game or were you on holiday?
No, came back from Berlin on Friday. Thanks Ryanair for double charging me a flight. Don't fly Ryanair. That's my. You can drink. It drove me to red wine. That's what it did on Friday. But yes, I was at the game. I'm sure people don't care too much about Ryanair, but don't fly Ryanair. I mean, it always feels like when you've had like a 2-1 or a 3-1. I think I said Wickham was like our toughest game this season, but I actually think Accrington probably gave us the toughest game this season so far.
It doesn't surprise me.
Good side, and I think there was a lot of chat about little old Accrington and Sunderland being big old Sunderland or whatever it is. I don't think any of us really said that. Not any that I know of. I'm sure there's 1 or 2, but most people seen it as a really tough game. They're there second as they were at the start when we played them for a reason. McConville's got brilliant delivery in the box. That kind of concerned me all the time. Obviously, they scored from a corner. We had our new Bayern Munich goalkeeper in, which sounds mental. Turns out he was a bit shaky, came into the game eventually, but I touched on it a couple of weeks ago, and I don't want to mention his name because I'm a bit worried that Man City might be sniffing about him, but Dan Neil, again, like just brilliant, far and wide our player of the season so far. And I think obviously John was talking about Ethan Robson before. I never felt like Ethan Robson was really given the chance. He was chucked in when we were absolutely horrendous in the Championship, and you can't polish a turd at the end of the day, and that was very much a big steaming pile of it in the Championship. Dan Neil's kind of not really been given the chances we would maybe hope in the past couple of seasons, but this season alongside Embo, who was actually quiet on Saturday, and Dan Neil, they've just took their chances, and it's just we look like young and youthful, and like the positive vibes coming from Sunderland is not just because we're winning games, that's helpful, but also these are players that we think can go up with us. I think Embleton, if Blackpool had offered enough, probably would have been playing in the Championship anyway. Dan Neil just looks a class above this level, and I'm so pleased he's been given the chance. You've got the likes of Kirkins come in there. But the best thing about everything is the fact that Carl Winchester signed as a defensive midfielder was actually the best right back in the world. Who would have known? Who would have known? But he's been phenomenal. Credit Accrington, they give us a real good game, but something feels just a bit different with something this season. And I mean, I try to be positive and stuff like that, and often it gets shrouded in the negativity that tends to come with something, but we look a really good team. We've beaten, I think we've beaten 5 of the top 7. So we're not beating teams around the bottom. We've beat Accrington, we've beat Wigan, we've beat Wickham, we've beat teams around us who will be wanting to push for the. Obviously, Burton beat us, of course, but anyone who watched that game will probably understand that we battered them. They had one shot on target. It sometimes goes that way in League One, doesn't it? But to kind of move away from Sunderland, because obviously we're class and there's not much more I can add to that at the moment. Accrington, I think, will actually make a bit of a go of it this season. I have a feeling that Accrington might actually sneak into the playoffs for once. They've got a decent squad, got a decent forward line. I know Dion Charles and I know that Colby Bishop are not firing on all cylinders, but they've got like Mombongo on the bench there to push them a little bit, who's obviously came from Burnley. Their goalkeeper was tremendous, James Trafford. No chance with the first one. The second one's really good play. And Carl Winchester, obviously best right back in the world, is going to finish that from that distance. But he had a really good game. He's on loan from Man City, the same as Callum Doyle is. I think more or less the same size, same age from our side. But I think Accrington might do all right this season. They certainly give us the game, and I think we just edged it. But I'm obviously going to be biased. I think if you look at the statistics, they were very, very even.
Yeah, just coming on to that, there was 42 shots in total, 21 each, and 5 on target each as well. So just seeing that game out 2-1 probably gives you like you say, there is something different. And dare I say it with Sunderland, although this is probably an oxymoron, but you've gone under the radar massively, haven't you? Like you've chipped away at games, and McGeady's not taking headlines. You've got a very decent side now. And you just look a very solid outfit, and dare I say, you and Wigan almost look identical in terms of you've got a very structured first 11 that can bring effective players on, and you're just going to go about your business nicely this season. Long may it continue, but you just hope Streaky Lee doesn't just come into play. But it does feel a little bit different this side.
It really does. Our bench is like, just looking at our bench there, you've got Lee Burge, Niall Huggins from Leeds, Corey Evans, who was at Blackburn last season, Alves, who's on loan from West Ham, Broadhead, who's on loan from Everton, Alex Pritchard, who was worth 11 million 4 years ago, and Bailey Wright, who was sort of more or less vice captain last year. And that's the good thing, is we're playing well with a lot of strength and depth, so an injury crisis should hopefully not affect us either.
Absolutely.
Do you think that the home crowd is helping you, Graham? Because obviously the fans are passionate up at the Northeast. Do you think having fans back at Stadium of Light's making a massive difference to start each season?
Massive, yeah. I think hugely. I think for me, when it comes to the home crowd, I think we get a lot of stick for being so passionate that we're sometimes negative. But you look at our stats last season for home games won, lost and drawn without fans. I think we lost about 5 at home. We'd only lost previously the season beforehand a maximum of 1, maybe 2. We've won 4 and 4. I mean, I'm biased, but I think 30,000 getting behind you, yeah, it's a bit of a fortress again, which is nice.
Yeah, it's certainly going to make a difference, isn't it? Long may it continue at the top. My second game choice is a very, very interesting match. Ian, look away now. It was that of Rotherham and Fleetwood. 4-2 victory for Fleetwood after Rotherham took the lead in the second half late on. Smith getting on the score sheet again, and sadly I added him for the Millers. But there's a couple of performances that I want to pick out, and that was of Callum Camps and Morton. They've got too many Callums in their team. But I think it was 1-0 start. Yeah, 1-0 to Fleetwood initially. And John, I'll come to you. Have you seen Morton's goal? For me, it's an absolutely sensational finish. And when I add it to worldy territory, maybe not, but the turn and the shot power beyond the keeper is one of a very decent finish.
Go
ahead, mate.
I think the free kick from Danny Andrews better, to be honest. I thought that was that. I think did he score against Lincoln from a free kick as well earlier in the season. So it's good that Fleetwood have finally found a little bit of form, because I was starting to worry about them a lot. I know Nappers was a bit worried himself, but they seem to be they seem to have got a bit of a rhythm going now, and if they can get mid-table, I think that'll be an achievement for Fleetwood, because at the start of the season, they were one of the sides I was really worried about. They obviously lost a lot of quality in the summer, and I didn't think they'd replaced it that adequately. But if they stay up, as I say, that'll be a massive achievement for Fleetwood. And I think it was just a bad day at the office for Rotherham. They're not offering that awful lot of home. They've got quality. They've obviously got Grigg, Ladapo, and Smith up top. And I think it's just one of those results that you just look at and then you just move on to the next game. And obviously I think they play Lincoln tomorrow, and I think that's going to be a massive game for them to come back and hopefully get a result.
Yeah, Matt, you already alluded to probably 2 incredible free kicks. Probably not going to see much better this season, although you'll probably argue if it's Galore scored, isn't it, for you? Second game of the season, wasn't it? But Callum Camp's finally finding some form after not scoring for several months, and 2 assists and a goal. He's really sort of being an integral part of Fleetwood again, isn't he?
He's pivotal, and he's going to be huge for him, isn't he? We spoke at the beginning of the season and on the 1 to 24 show again that we keep alluding to, and I said that I didn't think they'd score enough goals. I think, you look at people that they've had in previous seasons recently, like Madden and Ched Evans and people like that are going to get you 12, 15 goals a season each, and suddenly you're thinking, where's that coming from? But if they've got Callum Camps in the side on song, then they're going to have chances created, and then it's going to give them half a chance. And yeah, they had a really poor start, like Jonathan's just said, but 7 points from the last 9 available, isn't it? They've beaten Cheltenham 3-2. Then they got a decent point at Plymouth, and that looks a better point now as well, I'd imagine, because Plymouth are really starting to pick up. And I'll have to eat some humble pie in a minute when I talk about their game. Yeah, and then obviously it's a great win at the weekend. No one saw that coming. I don't think it's probably a bit of a coupon buster for anyone that likes a flutter. And what did I put on my notes? Simon Grayson starting to have an effect. Again, it's similar to Paul Cook, isn't it? It's his team. It's on a much smaller scale, and it's his squad, and they're just starting to gel. And yeah, I've got nothing against Fleetwood. I've got them to get relegated in my season predictions, but they are certainly showing signs of life at the moment and give themselves a fighting chance.
Yeah, they've signed not loads of players, but where they've added quite well. I've always been quite a big fan of Callum Morton on the tenses of what he did at Northampton, and when he finds his form, whether that be at League 2 or League 1, I didn't have a good time at Lincoln, but he showed getting in behind. He was running beyond Rotherham. A couple of he didn't assist the goal, but he had a pivotal part in the fourth goal. And if he starts running in behind and finding his form after his hat trick in the EFL Cup, obviously a pretty poor competition. But at the end of the day, when you're a striker and you've scored 3 goals in a game, and then you go on the next league game and score, he's going to have a big part to play for Fleetwood. And just going back to something completely random, but Portsmouth, then that's why Portsmouth surprised me. They both got hat tricks, Ellis Harrison and Morton, and Morton starts, has a really positive influence on the game. Portsmouth don't score when he comes on in the 80th minute, and just shows you've got to have faith with someone in form. And I think if he continues to have a big part of them with Camps and etc., then they could start to feel a bit more comfortable, Fleetwood. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Rotherham will be just fine. Ian, I think he's still dominated in terms of statistics. It's just they hurt you effectively, and you've got to respond to that. And Lincoln is going to be a tough game, so get anything out of that, and you're back on track. We next have Wigan Doncaster. Over to you, John. That was your second game choice.
Yeah. This was a really intriguing one for me. Wigan, I thought were going to be sort of the dark horses of the League One. They've signed really well, really sort of under the radar. They did go behind in this game to Doncaster, and I think Doncaster fans thought that maybe the tide had turned because they've not had a good start to the season whatsoever. But then Will Keane pops up with 2 goals. He scored his first one not long after Doncaster scored from a corner, and then the second goal was in the second half. It was a really tidy finish actually. I just think Wigan have got sort of underrated quality in their side. I think they started with Callum Lang, Charlie White, Will Keane, like up top. Then they've got obviously Max Power in the side as well. I think Jack Watmore's a really good signing for them at centre back at Wigan. I think he was really underrated at Pompey. And I'm in a way, I'm really happy that Wigan have had a real solid start to the season after what they went through last season and like not just surviving. I know it was fairly comfortable in the end, but it's, as I said, it's just Doncaster that I really, really fear for. I can't see where the goals are coming from at the minute. I think their two main strikers are out injured. I think there was contract disputes with Omar Bogle. Not sure if he was back on the bench or starting. And it just seems to me that this time last year, Doncaster were up there. I think they were second or third or something. They were quite high up all last season. And then in a year, they've lost their manager. They've probably lost 2 or 3 of their best players, and they just haven't replaced them adequately. And I really struggle to see where their first win's coming from.
Yeah, Matt, Wigan finding a bit of form themselves. I think, John, you've summed up Doncaster really well. I think they are in trouble, but on the opposite side to that, Wigan finding ways to win without being spectacular at the moment. And I think that's Max Power's third assist of the season. Wilkins got 3 goals already and an assist. They just seem to be ticking over throughout the squad, don't they? They look defensively quite decent, kept a lot of clean sheets already, or conceding the odd goal that they don't really want to concede. A bit of a sloppy maybe goals to concede, and they look really decent.
They've got depth as well. If you look at their bench at the weekend, Stephen Humphreys, Jordan Jones, Gwyn Edwards, Curtis Tilt, Tom Pearce. I don't know who Sam Tickle is. Is that one of the Mr. Men? Bless him. What an excellent name that is. He must have been the sub-keeper, I'm assuming, because none of the others are goalies. But yeah, they've got strength in depth. And we spoke about Will Keane a few weeks ago, and I said it was intriguing to watch him playing the number 10, but he's absolutely thriving. So fair play to Liam Richardson, because Will Keane's essentially been a number 9 all his career. I know he's been a bit nomadic and he's never really sort of fulfilled that potential that he had as a kid, but Richardson's obviously saw something and said, right, we're going to play you in a slightly different position so we can get you and Charlie Wyke into the side, but without losing numbers in the middle of the park if we're without the ball. And he's been brilliant so far, Will Keane, this season. They've got a very good squad. The spine of it's very good. And I know Graham likes to joke about Charlie Wyke, but they're second. They haven't lost since the opening day. They've played a lot of the teams that will probably be up there this season already. And Charlie Wyke's not got going yet. If they get Charlie Wyke going, there's every reason they could be in the top 2 come the end of the season, because regardless of whether Charlie Wyke moves out the 6-yard box, out the 18-yard box, is mobile or isn't mobile, if he scores half the goals he scored for Sunderland last season, then he's gonna win you plenty of points. And if they've got other people chipping in as well, the Will Keanes and the Stephen Humphreys and that type of player, then they're going to be a threat all season long.
Absolutely, yeah, well summarised. Moving on to the next game, up to the 40-minute mark. Been a very decent chat so far, but no goals for Hardy or Jeffcott. Jeffcott didn't add to his 3 goals and 1 assist, but no problem for Plymouth as they rise to 8th, Matt.
Yeah, and that's literally the first line I wrote. Most impressive part for me was they've relied on Ryan Hardy and Luke Jeffcott all season so far, and they've been very good. But they didn't come to the fore at the weekend, and they've seen off a very good Sheffield Wednesday side. We sat here a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, when Sheffield Wednesday got beaten Morecambe, and we said, it's going to happen. It's League One. Them type of results, they get chucked up every so often. They were unlucky in that game. They dominated everything, didn't they? The possession, the shots on target. Morecambe rode their luck, had an own goal. This is a really good win, though, for Plymouth. And I am going to eat a lot of humble pie, because I think we all had Plymouth to go down, didn't we? In the 1-24s. I didn't see them being defensively strong enough. I didn't see James Wilson making enough of a difference. They've kept clean sheets in 50% of their league games this season, and they beat us 1-0, and I was really disappointed, but it's not such a disastrous result now if a loss isn't a disaster in any way. We've got comments from Liam Martin here. We just bring his comment in. For me, not being disrespectful to the 3 teams of Wimbledon, Donny and Crewe, they're also win over us. Donny and Crewe also at home, so he thinks they can pick up 9 points from the next 3 games. I didn't realise that's 3 very, very appealing fixtures, for a team that's in good form at the moment. And Sheffield Wednesday have plenty of the ball again, but I think if there's any Owls fans out there that still didn't think League One will be difficult, that's probably just let you know and emphasise the point that it is. There are some good sides in this division that are not maybe, the big teams, the Sunderlands, the Portsmouths, the Ipswich, the Charltons and that type. And you can get rolled over if you're ever so slightly off it. And I'm not saying it was a disastrous performance by Sheffield Wednesday, but Plymouth was solid defensively. There was a couple of chances at 2-0. I think there was a Barry Bannon header, and then there was a massive scramble after that got cleared off the line. Plymouth were chucking bodies here, there and everywhere to keep the ball out. There was one incident that was like pinball in the 6-yard box. You didn't see enough of that from the Pilgrims last season. The first goal was brilliant innovation, isn't it, from Joe Edwards, the little overhead kick in the middle of the box. The second one's well worked, and so's the third one. They've scored. The second one was a set piece, wasn't it? Brilliant delivery from Connor Grant for Dan Scarr. I think that's his first goal since arriving from Walsall in the summer. Absolutely brilliant delivery. As a centre forward or as a centre back attacking a set piece, that's the type of delivery you want every week, isn't it? And then they were solid defensively, and then they caught them on the break for the third goal, which was well worked as well. So big credit to Ryan Lowe, because they're Ryan Law, who finished that one off. Plymouth at the moment going under the radar and doing a really good job of picking up points against sides that they probably weren't fancy to at the start of the season.
Yeah, they've got really good experience over the pitch as well. Like you say, Broom, Grant, Jeffcott, Hardy, Edwards, Scar. They had a lot of League One grit and experience. And I think what I forgot your name, Graham. Sorry, what Graham said earlier is really sort of stuck with me. If you don't adapt and change in League One, you're going to get. And this league is now turning into that, isn't it? We're 6 or 7 games in now for some teams, and the table's on its head. And those teams like MK Dons and Wigan, etc., they're adapting, they're changing. Yes, they've spent money on wages, etc., but they are trying to improve themselves to be better than everyone else and having a good go. And teams like Accrington and stuff, that's why they're so exciting, because every year they change something, and they see themselves in and around the mix. Whereas if you don't, start well, or you don't if you're complacent like Ipswich have been, then you face the consequences for that. And League One for me is why it's one of the hardest leagues in the world to get out of. Who did we have next? Oh, the game of the weekend for me, Graham. Your pick, Morecambe, Accrington. Wow, was all I have to say.
It was Morecambe, Wimbledon.
Wimbledon, wasn't it?
Wimbledon. Sorry, that's an old tag. I'm so sorry. Wimbledon.
It was me just nodding away. Like, yeah. That was
so
the game.
Sorry. Sorry, guys. That's the wine.
Too much red wine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, too much red wine.
Absolutely. Right. Sorry about that. Yeah. Sorry. I'll start again. Morecambe, Wimbledon.
We all make mistakes, Tom. Don't worry about it. You're doing your sterling job. Don't ignore them. What a game. The thing is, a 4-3 is always a good game, but then the goals that were in it as well. The first one from Hartigan's an absolute screamer. After 5 minutes, you think, well, that's going to be goal of the game no matter what happens. Then there's another 6 goals that go on top of that. Obviously, the third goal, should I say, from Morecambe, from Cole Stockton's just a scream, and that's his 8th of the season. He's got 8 goals already as Cole Stockton, it's going to be huge no matter whichever way we look at it. For a team that I know they've done all right and they started well, but there's going to be a point when they're going to be battling against potential relegation, so they need someone that's going to score goals. But I think for me, Wimbledon again, I know it looks like a close game in terms of the scoreline, but I think statistically and also from the extended highlights that I watched, I think for me, 19 shots to 7 kind of tell a lot of the story. And I think you talked about Sunderland going under the radar before. I think Wimbledon have. The fourth in the league. They're playing really attacking, exciting football. Like a lot of their goals, a lot of their play. Obviously, I've seen them at the Stadium of Light this season, and they were also very good. But I quite like this idea of, and I'm certainly not the kind of person that likes the low block. It's called sitting back in my world, so I'm very much not one of those new school kind of, what is it, XG or whatever it's called. Like, just explain it in the normal way that I understand it. But they brought in a substitution coach or something like that, which is really, really interesting. They've got a guy that essentially assesses when's the right time to bring on the substitutes in terms of like the teams, when do they suffer against pace at a specific time and yada yada. And I think like there's about, I could be wrong with the statistic here, but I'm sure it's like a lot of their goals have come from substitutes or after they've made a substitution, and like directly afterwards this season. So thus far, 7 games in, it's kind of proven that maybe that works. And again, Wimbledon quietly just doing really, really well. I think they've got a decent squad they're putting together. I think even the last goal, their winner, it overshadowed by Hartigan's goal and overshadowed by Stockton's second strike. But their winner was great as well. He just turned on a sixpence. And I think, I know it was away from home with Wimbledon, but I think them playing at Plough Lane this season is going to be a big thing, like a really big thing. They look like they're a challenge for teams away from home. I think they'll give anyone a game. They give us a game, which is unexpected at the time. Obviously, they've got a Morecambe who are in form and have won, scoring 4 goals
at their place. They battered us at their place, and we pulled their pants down in injury time and nicked a point.
I don't know whether they'll be in fourth position by the end of the season. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, we talked about how Wimbledon are like Houdini. Do you know what I mean? They always get out of it. I don't think they're going to have to do that this season. I think Robinson, the manager, is obviously just a little bit more forward thinking than maybe what they've had previously. And I feel bad for saying that about Glenn Hodges because I really like him. Really nice bloke. But I just feel like Wimbledon have moved into a slightly different dimension to what they were previously, which was bring in non-league players, see if we can get a win. I think he's kind of done that, but then also added an element on top. And I thought they were fab on Saturday. We could talk about Morecambe and the Stockton goal, but for me, Wimbledon should have put that game away well beforehand. And that was because of how well they played. So yeah, kudos to Wimbledon. I like to see them do well as well. I think almost everyone does. Maybe not John, but
I'll say not everyone.
I'm not going to come to you, John, as a personal request, but Matt, shout out to Nightingale as well. Defences are always important. Hennigan getting the equaliser or first goal against Ipswich from a header from a set piece is another set piece goal. He's got 3 goals now, I think, all season from centre back, and I think that's 2 in 2 or 3 in 3 now for him, and is played a pivotal part at the back for Wimbledon as well.
Yeah, you see, they've always, like Graham said, they've always struggled at this level, haven't they? And then they seem to. I joked at the start of the season, either on my preview show or on ours, and said that they could be 30 points adrift with 6 games to go, and they'd still get out of trouble. But I have to concur with what Graham's saying at the moment. I had them to get relegated. I really feared for them because they'd lost Joe Piggott's goals, and I just thought that a team that struggled to create chances and was relying on one person to score 45% of your goals, which is what Piggott did last season, spelled trouble. But I wonder how Mr. Piggott's feeling at the moment. A penny for his thoughts at the moment while he sits entrenched in a relegation zone, and Wimbledon are absolutely thriving and playing a completely different way to they did under Glyn Hodges and Wally Downs before that, and Neil Ardley going back a bit further. He's ripped everything up, and he said, I'm doing it my way, and he's doing it really well at the moment, Michael Robinson, and fair play to him. He's doing a great job, and whether it's sustainable over 46 games, I'm not so sure if they have injuries or suspensions, but you can only be as good as your last performance, and their start to the season has been very, very good.
I'm also one of them ones that said Piggott will score 20 to 25 goals with that team around him after seeing what he did last season. And as you say, something's not right with Ipswich. And, you know, I think if he was in that Wimbledon side, that they might even be further up the table, which is, you know, the most ironic thing. But move on. Got about 12, 13 minutes to go. And John, I'll come to you. Was it Blair and Perry adding 2 goals for Cheltenham? And you call it a shock, but Cheltenham's start to the season has been appalling so far, and it's a fantastic win for the Robins.
It certainly is. We obviously played them last week on the international break, and they actually aren't a bad side. They took the lead. I think their problem was they just sat back and allowed us to have a lot of the ball, and we just had to work really hard to break them down. I honestly think, and I'm not just saying this as an MK fan, if we had Mo Isa or Troy Parrott in that game, I think we would have won that comfortably. No disrespect to Charlie Brown. But Charlton, for me, there's something not right there. They came to our place, I think, second home game of the season, took an early lead, And then as soon as we equalised, they were shell shocked, and it's almost like if Jaden Stockley doesn't score, then almost where's the goals coming from? I know they've signed Lecco late on in the window. They've got Jaya Simi, they've got Charlie Kirk, Connor Washington, they've got Alex Gilby to come back at some point as well. So they have got the quality there. But it's a bit like you said for Ipswich earlier on. How long do you leave it? Because they'd have been wanting minimum playoffs with the squad that they've got. And you're just wondering how long does the Charlton board leave it before Nigel Adkins possibly loses his job. I'm not saying that he has to just yet, but there's going to be massive pressure on Charlton to certainly improve their form going forward.
I think you've summed that up perfectly. I think with the squad they've got, they sit bottom four, is it? And Cheltenham now 14th and are plodding along nicely. And we always said, didn't we, Matt, that Duff will get them organised and well structured. They're taking their chances. I think Blair's now taking his chances a lot better than he was at the start of the season with the chances that he had. And now he's popping in a few goals here and there, and they're seeing out games nicely. And regardless of Cheltenham's league position, they've held up well and they've taken 3 points and not bowed to what was a Jonathan Lecco goal at 55 minutes, wasn't it? So they've still sustained that pressure and taken away all 3 points, which even I didn't expect after the 3-0 against Crewe.
Yeah, it's a big result. It's a really good result for them, and they've started great, haven't they? And I think all the teams that have come up have done really well so far. I don't think anyone's underachieved. That's probably the wrong word because they're all coming up from the division below. So what's underachieving after half a dozen games? But there's a couple that are punching above their weight, and there's others that are certainly at least on a par with where you'd think they'd be. So fair play to all of them. How often have we said it? There tends to be one team that comes up from League Two and goes all the way through to the Championship straight away. I didn't see being any this season, but Bolton are probably the ones that you'd have to think have probably got the best chance. But Cheltenham, what I've seen so far, I think they'll have enough to stay up. We said about Alfie May at the start of the season, he won't score you loads of goals, but he's such a willing runner. His energy and his work rate's infectious off the ball. He's willing to run the channels all day long, even if he doesn't get the ball himself. And then that creates space for the other players. And that, that could be the case for Saturday. They're just the two wide players that have scored the goals. Michael Duff's doing a fantastic job. That's the bottom line. Again, like Jonathan said, how long did Charlton leave it? It is only 6 games, but when you spend big on transfer fees and or wages, you do expect almost an immediate return. And them and Ipswich have probably been the 2 biggest disappointments of the season so far. But from my point of view, let's just hope the Charlton's horrendous run continues for another week, 8 days, because we've got to play them at home next Tuesday.
Absolutely. Moving on, I'll give this one to you, Matt. I'm sure you can surmise it in under a minute, but I'm not sure. Your first goal your goal is decent with the front 2 linking up, but I have to ask what the Burton player is doing just before he's dispossessed for your goal.
I'm not sure. Yeah, there was like a little bit of crab football went on in the middle of the park, weren't there? Like you used to play
he
when you
went forward, went back,
ball, yeah, and then they all sort of sat down, and then we pinched it. And so I didn't go to the game. Reece and Owen and Sam did my match day live for me this week, and they all said it felt like it was 2 points left at Burton. We absolutely dominated them first half, especially Mustafa Carriol. I think he tied their right back in so many knots that they had to get the Boy Scouts out to come and help him out. And unfortunately, the half-time team talk went out the window. You know what Steve Evans and Paul Rayner would have said. They'd have said we'd be solid for 15, 20 minutes. We quietened the crowd. We were solid for about 15 seconds, I think it was, unfortunately, and conceded from a long throw. But the good thing Saturday was that if that was probably 2 weeks ago at Shrewsbury, we went on and lost the game because we purely didn't have people that were fit enough to be on the bench. We didn't have people that were fit enough to be in the squad, and then people were starting the game and having to do 90 minutes, whereas this week it's the strongest bench we had all season. Charlie Kelman was promising on debut. He could have scored. He had one that was exactly the same sort of shot across the keeper as for Dane Oliver. Oliver's just crept inside the post. Unfortunately, Kelman's went just past it, and that would have put us 2-0 up, and I think we'd have gone on to win it quite comfortably from there. But there's one second half where Carriol cuts inside his man. It sort of hits the keeper on the inside of the knee and spins past the far post. But Burton had their moments as well. Jamie Cummins had to make a couple of good saves. But for me, I thought it was a really good point. Disappointing in the sense that Reece and Owen and Sam said that we should have been out of sight. but Burton have started well. For me, it looked like a Gillingham performance, and it looked like a Steve Evans team performance, and we've not seen that enough this season, and that's for reasons out of his control. We've had so many problems with injury and COVID that we've just not been able to get, consistent selections and consistent performances out of people. And fingers crossed, moving forward, we do. We've got 2 home games coming up now against MK Dons Saturday and Charlton on Tuesday week, and if we can pick up 4 points from them 2 games, then suddenly we're going to look in a lot better position. But yeah, it's certainly in terms of the performance, it was a lot more encouraging, and we won't be anywhere near the relegation zone. I'm confident of that all the time. Steve Evans is in charge.
Yeah, you're spot on there, I think. Last 2 games then, Shrewsbury Crew, bit of a stagnant affair in terms of both teams' sort of seasons. They both would have want to win after Crew signed reasonably well on the last day, but it's positive signs, Graham, that Crew have played much better. Mandron's got Crew's second and his second goal of the season. They've gone away from home and picked up a point. I think Shrewsbury a bit more annoyed come the end of the 90 minutes, but I think Crew will suit that result a little bit more, and they take the next game at home looking for 3 points.
I think when you're struggling like Crew have been, and you're kind of looking for not just the next 3 points, the next point, you've got to take any positive with it. I know Crew haven't won a game yet, and I know Shrewsbury's only won the 1, but it's a really long old season. You can start quite disastrously and still end up in the playoff places if you turn it around quick enough. And I actually really like Mandron. Obviously, he was at Sunderland for a while. I never really seen him at Sunderland, but it was a while ago now. But the last game before the pandemic for Gillingham, he was absolutely superb, and Matt will attest to that. And he's got it in his locker, and I think we could say for a lot of players, but I think Mandron's one of those players that's got really high quality, just not really high level consistency, probably. But if you do it occasionally, that'll be enough to probably keep you up. And I think Crew have got enough to stay up. And I know it's not been the best of starts, but I think Crew will be okay. Shrewsbury, on the other hand, I'm a bit concerned by. I know they beat Gillingham the other week, but you're going to win 1 game in 6 occasionally, and that's going to happen in a long old season. But for me, Shrewsbury, I was speaking to the Salopcast not long ago, and they were saying things ain't good. And I just think since their really good season have struggled, and I keep seeing that happening, and I just feel like Shrewsbury might be, I can't remember where I put them in predictions. I know they're near the bottom, but I have a feeling that I think they might slip up.
I think we all had them about 15, 16, just with the sheer lack of goals, but it's turning a bit bitter with Steve Cottrell. I've seen a couple of interviews now where he's turning a bit, saying nasty is probably the right word. He's reacting, saying, you tell me how we played then if you know, that sort of thing. So it's not nice to see, and I don't think the fans are appreciating it much as well, which is horrible considering what he's been through as well. But
he's a bit like that, wasn't he? He was assistant manager at Sunderland when I was a kid, and he is a bit like that. I know it's not the right. I know obviously he's had a really difficult year, and obviously everyone fully behind him with that. But from a manager, I found him quite defensive in the past. I know some fans love him, Bristol City, some fans don't. He was at Sunderland really early in his career, and he was very, I'll use the word defensive, and I don't think it benefits Shrewsbury at all if he's acting like that.
Absolutely. The final game, by any means, not a goal fest because it was 0-0, John, but 2 decent sides. Wickham effective without the ball. Oxford 66% possession, couldn't make it count. It's one of those games where you probably shake hands at the end of it and move on to the next one.
Yeah, didn't realise the possession was that high. I wonder where I've heard that before in recent years. But possession doesn't win you games. Learned that the hard way several times last season. Gillingham being the perfect one actually last season. And I think both sides will just take the point and move on. I think it was always going to be a tight affair. It's 2 sides that are going to be there or thereabouts. Wickham for me, I think getting Sam Vokes was a masterstroke. Obviously, Kai when he wants to can be a big player as well. And I don't know. I just fear for Oxford if Matty Taylor and who is it called? If Matty Taylor doesn't score, or I forget who the other one is. Oh God, my brain's gone. But yeah. if Matty Taylor doesn't get the
Henry.
goals, and
James Henry.
Yeah, James Henry. If those two don't perform for Oxford, then I struggle to see where their goals really come from. In all honesty,
They seem to be a catalyst, don't they, for Oxford? But we'll see how these teams get on. As you said, they'll be there or thereabouts. But I think Wycombe will have, like you say, if the other two don't perform, but Wycombe know how to win games with their squad in general, whereas Oxford maybe rely on 2 or 3 players. So we'll see how they get on. But that finishes sort of the fixtures, and we'll move on to the last few talking points, which we've already sort of surmised. Scully over the weekend, and there's not much more to add to it. I had it in my notes just to talk about it a little bit more, but we surmised it in their match. Phenomenal performance, and Matt said at any level, you've just got to appreciate the skill and the inspiration he's got in that Lincoln side to kickstart their season. I think it's 5 goals, 3 assists, and obviously he got two goals and 3 assists on the weekend, but nonetheless it shows his quality, and he did it against Lincoln, did it against Fleetwood as well with a sensational finish, very similar to the one at Cambridge. And you've got to think is going to be a pivotal part now. They've lost Johnson and Rogers from last season, so he's going to definitely be an inspirational talking point. And we've already talked about it, and probably not as much as Morecambe fans would want, but I'll add to that. Stockton's on fire, 12 shots, Matt, 6 goals, 50% shot accuracy. He's a striker which knows where the ball, where the goal is, and he's just settled into League One. And for me, looking at him and looking at his goals, especially the one on the weekend, but may I add, is utterly incredible. If that was Ronaldo, Messi, or anyone over the weekend, then it would have been headlines for days. For me, one of the goals of the season already. He probably could be in any side in this championship, in League One, and score as many goals.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we always say teams that are coming up, if they've got a goal scorer, I think Graham alluded to it earlier in the piece, if they've got goal scorers, you've got half a chance. The goal specifically for me, what makes it so outrageously good for me is it looks like he's gone with a side foot. Your tendency there, I'd imagine, if you play football, is to go with the laces there. But I think he's realised that the keeper's so far out that he's gone, right, I can side foot this. I've got enough time to loft it over him and to get it up and down. The technique's incredible. The fact that he's even thought about taking it on is outrageous enough. The fact that he's got it on target is then even more outrageous. And the fact that he's actually scored is just absolutely phenomenal. And it just says to me, a player at the top of his game who thinks anything that it's going to go in. And we had James and Charlie on, didn't we, a few weeks ago? And James said that, or it might have been on my match preview show, James said that once he gets the ball within his sphere and it's under his control, it's impossible to get the ball off. So he can hold it up, he can play with his back to goal. He certainly knows how to finish. He's decent in the air. Probably didn't realise he quite had that in his locker, to be fair to him. I'm not sure James and Charlie did either, but it's a phenomenal hit from a very good player who I think will continue to thrive at this level.
It's just come to life, hasn't he? And it's such a shame that that game ended, well, obviously not for Wimbledon, but it ended with one of those teams winning, because it was a hell of a match. And you take the polar opposite to that. His first goal is, I think he's got his back to goal initially, but he just turns around and he's found the net with such ease. Whereas some strikers may find it difficult to score, and it'll be interesting to see how many goals he's actually going to get in this side, because they're going to rely heavily on him scoring goals, of course. But do you think? I'll throw this out to you, Graham. Do you think come January he might be a target for a championship side? Maybe you can see him at a team like Blackburn, even Blackpool, quite local to him, but someone's going to take a punt on him, and it probably won't take a ridiculous fee to get him off Morecambe's hands.
I think that's what it comes down to, isn't it? It comes down to if he keeps on at his rate of scoring, then teams maybe above will look at him and think, well, low risk, potential high reward. So yeah, maybe, but devil's advocate, I've seen a few plays. Obviously, he's 27, I think now. I'm saying I've definitely...
Yeah, 27 years of age.
I was going to say, I think I definitely just Googled it as I was speaking. So I know he's 27. But yeah, I always feel with strikers at this level that sometimes it can go through a hot streak. Charlie Wyke had a season-long one. Was very poor otherwise for Sunderland, for example. So I think players can go and do something, and they can go on a
that before.
Charlie White. Nah, more yellow cards than goals this season, lads. But I think he's got to keep it going. And I know it's really good, and I know that sounds a bit negative, and Morecambe fans are probably thinking, bloody hell, you put his bottom in the thing, you're not giving our striker credit for getting 8 goals. But you have to keep that kind of stuff going. It has to continue. I think Jeffacott last season scored a lot of goals and dried up. And then Plymouth started a little bit. So, but if he continues at the same rate of, what was it, 50% he's scoring of the shots he has, if he does continue like that, even if he goes in January, it's good news it's really, really good news for Morecambe, because you're better off having a striker for 6 months that'll get you 15, 17 goals than having a striker that'll get you 10 goals all season. So it'll be disappointing if he does go for them, but I think if he continues at the same rate, he's going to attract attention, but at the same time, it'll still benefit Morecambe because they'll get a bit of money and they've got a striker that's banged a load of goals in for them, and hopefully we'll put them about mid-table going into the sort of February.
Cool. Right. The last talking point and a word from you all. Nigel Atkins and Paul Cook. Matt, do they last to the end of October? Yes or no? Yes or no for both of them?
Can we answer
Paul Cook first?
It takes. I just looked at. I think Ipswich's next two fixtures are Wednesday and Lincoln. I think if he doesn't come out with, I think if he draws both, it probably keeps him. It gives him a buffer. I think if he loses both, Paul Cook's in real trouble. Nigel Atkins, on a smaller scale, I don't know what their next game is Saturday. I'll just have a quick look. I know they've got us the following Tuesday. They've got Wickham away Saturday, so that's going to be tricky as well.
Ooh. Wow.
Again, I suppose if they get beaten at Wickham and don't turn us over, then questions are going to be asked a bit more. They'd both be entrenched in the bottom 4 then, and at what point do you start saying, I know after 8 games, and we keep saying it, but not adrift in terms of a relegation battle. I don't for 1 minute think either will get relegated, but that wasn't the ambition at the start of the season. So I think the next 2-3 fixtures for both managers are hugely important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally don't think Paul Cook will last. If it's not going to be to the end of October, it's certainly for me going to be November. I just don't think he's going to win enough in that short time. I don't see it clicking that quickly versus what Lincoln is going to just turn around and click. You saw it at Cambridge. You saw it at Cambridge where they just kind of clicked. I don't think that will happen at Ipswich because I think vulnerably, as Matt's already alluded to, they're going to be too defensively weak and they're going to concede too many goals to overcome that. You can't concede 5 goals within an hour. You know, you're not going to get anything out of that game. And I just don't see them doing it against the opponents they've got up. So for me, I think Cook won't be in a job. Atkins is. I completely agree with Ian. You, John?
I think Paul Cook's going to get a bit longer. I think the biggest thing, I think I've read a few of Ipswich fans thinking he's not bringing Liam Richardson with him when he came. Is that another thing that they've not done? Because, you know, managers always take their assistants with them. I mean, Steve Evans has taken Paul Rayner with him pretty much everywhere and things like that. And you sort of just wonder, is the fact that Liam Richardson's not with Paul Cook part of the reason why Ipswich are struggling? With the quality of the squad, I can't see them being like this for too much longer. It's Charlton that I really worry for. That Wickham game is huge. I think if they get 4 points out of the next 2 games, then I think Adkins will be all right. But anything less, then I think he'll be on really thin ice.
Fair enough. Okay, so moving on to the fixtures. We're all running out a bit of time. But we've got tomorrow's match is Lincoln Rotherham. I'll go around the room. I'll start. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw, Matt.
Yeah, I'll go with that 1-1.
Graham?
2-1 Lincoln.
And John?
1-0 Lincoln.
Ooh, nice one. Okay, so we're not going to go through exact scores, but we'll go through each game, not give our predictions on all of them. We'll put that on Twitter after because we're on out a bit of time. But I'll start Accrington, Stanley, and Wigan. I'm going to go with a plucky Accrington draw. Matt, AFC Wimbledon, Plymouth.
Home win, just.
Graham, Bolton, Rotherham.
Bolton.
Okay. John, Cheltenham, Oxford.
Oxford.
Ooh, okay. I will go with a 2-1. I'm not going to give exact scores, but I'm going to go for Crewe Alexandra victory. I think they'll turn the tide against a struggling Burton. I say struggling, but struggling to pick up a bit of form. Matt, Doncaster, Morecambe.
Draw.
Graham, Fleetwood, Sunderland.
Sunderland.
Oh, had to land on you, did it? John, Gillingham, MK Dons. Wow, that landed on you as well. Brilliant.
Yep. Bogey ground, take the point, move on.
Okay. I'm going to go with a 2-1 Lincoln. I keep giving the scores. Lincoln victory. Matt, Pompey, Cambridge.
Pompey, just.
Graham, Sheffield Wednesday, Shrewsbury.
Easy win for Sheffield.
And finally, you've got the last game. John, Wickham, Charlton.
Wickham.
Okay. Well, we'll put our exact predictions up for tomorrow's night game, and then on the Friday, as we usually do, and I'll also announce the winner of the Super Six. I've had a mental weekend and haven't actually calculated it yet, but there's about 22
We
predictions.
call it that. Are we going to get done for copyright? We might have to call it something else. Select your six. I'll call it.
If Sky come after me, it put us in the headlines, won't it? So
we should change it to who can get the results.
Company to come after us, would it?
We should change it to who can get the results the most wrong and call it the Super Shite Six.
Well, basically, if you put an accumulator of what you think will happen, or certainly with me, it's going to happen the opposite. So maybe just betting the opposite.
I did an accumulator at the weekend. Guess who let me down?
Not Fulham.
Fulham, get in!
I helped you out.
I don't feel bad for you at all. So you predict a Fulham victory, and you were wrong. The curse of Blackpool come back to bite you. I'm only joking.
Please gamble responsibly, everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, please do.
Anyway, that finishes. John, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and giving your insight to the weekend's matches.
Oh, absolutely spot on. Thanks for having me, guys, and great to be on.
And thank you for your continued support, mate. Matt, as ever, thank you for coming on.
Always a pleasure.
Graham, welcome back from Berlin. And was it Berlin? It was Berlin, wasn't it?
It
Hope
was.
you had a good time, and thank you very much for another funny insight to your League One knowledge.
Don't fly Ryanair.
And from all us at the third tier, it's a very good evening. The audio for this will be out very shortly, and look forward to seeing you next week. Good night.